Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026, 6 p.m. We do have a quorum present, so I would like to call to order this public hearing for the purpose of receiving public comment on the FY27 proposed preliminary budget, which was accepted or received by the board at its November 19th, 2025 meeting. And we are required to hold public hearings. This is actually our third event of holding a public hearing. This one has been properly warned. And if there are members of the public present, either in person, via Zoom, or via the telephone, who wish to provide commentary to the board on the proposed FY27 preliminary budget, you are welcome to do so. I can state for the record, there are no members of the public present in the board meeting room at CSWD offices. And I am seeing no members of the public present via Zoom. Let me confirm if there's anybody present via telephone.
Becky, do you see anyone?
No, I don't see any members of the public on Zoom.
Very good. Seeing as there are no members of the public who wish to address the board with comments or questions about the proposed preliminary FY27 budget, we will close the public comment period, and I'll entertain a motion then to adjourn this public hearing.
So moved, Essex. Second, South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn or close this public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Public hearing is now closed. We will now call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District. As previously noted, we do have a quorum present. The time is now 6:02 p.m. Board packet was sent out, and a revised packet was emailed out to the board members yesterday, a little bit more complete information and a little bit easier for us to follow through. And that packet included the agenda, and that's the first item on our agenda. Are there any additions or changes requested to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll follow the agenda as presented in the board packet. We're now ready for item number 2, which is a public comment period. If there are any members of the public who have arrived who wish to address the Board of Commissioners, now would be the opportunity. And again, state for the record that there are no members of the public present in the board meeting room.
There are no members of the public on Zoom.
Very good. Then I will go ahead and close the public comment period. We'll move on to item number 3, which is the consent agenda consisting of the minutes of the November 19th, 2025 board meeting. Excuse me, the January 28th, 2026 board meeting, program update memos, finance memo, and the executive director update, as well as the authorization for renewing the contract for NetSuite, which exceeds the authority of the executive director and did not come before the executive board, so we're bringing this before the full board for action tonight. Leslie, your hand is up. And you're muted.
I have a small item on the minutes for Jan 28th. It's very small, but it may be relevant to questions I have later in the agenda, so I thought it might be worth mentioning it. In item 4C, it says that I requested information on MRF project costs. Now, I may be misremembering this, and of course I don't have a tape, but I thought I had asked for projections. And that was my intent, but maybe I didn't say that. I don't know. It's just that it will be relevant to other parts of the agenda, so I didn't know if it's worth making a change to the minutes or not for that.
Perhaps we can just verify that offline before the final iteration of the minutes are posted, but it's duly noted that you were looking for projections. That'll come up in further discussion at this meeting. Thanks, Leslie. Bryn, your hand is up?
Yeah, I had a quick question about the NetSuite consent agenda item. I don't know if we want to just remove
We'll
that.
pull that out of the consent agenda and take that up separately. Any other requests for an item to be removed from the consent agenda? I just wanted to call the board's attention, I don't want to remove this, but just again to underscore in the executive director update on page 41 of the packet, that she had noted that 2 RFPs, requests for proposal, are now out on the street for the facility operations of the new MRF when the construction is completed, and also for the commodity brokerage or marketing of sorted materials. And I just call that to everybody's attention because those are 2 very important issues that the board will be taking up in the next couple of months. And I just would like commissioners to be very cognizant of that. We will have the opportunity to get into the details. It's not something for discussion tonight, but just wanted to make sure that all commissioners were aware of that. Then with the exception of removing the NetSuite contract, I will declare the consent agenda approved as presented in the packet. Turn it back over to you, Bryn, with your question about NetSuite.
Yeah, I was curious if CSWD has looked at leveraging any other state pre-negotiated contracts for similar services. I can't imagine that we're the only ones using NetSuite in the state, and curious if there's an opportunity to just decrease the rates and increase services by working through some type of partnership. So I know we're further along and I don't want to hold up this item from moving forward, but I think kind of on the grander scheme, when this comes up again, if that might be explored.
John, you want to respond?
I don't see how that's feasible. Sharing a license with another entity, how would we actually use the software in a way where we weren't getting in each other's way? Sounds like perhaps we could be set up as subsidiaries within the software.
So the Building and General Services of the state of Vermont negotiates contracts with a variety of entities, and that is extended to municipalities. So my curiosity is whether or not it's been explored that the Buildings and General Services has a pre-negotiated contract with NetSuite or a similar service provider so that we might leverage pre-negotiated rates for such a contract.
Okay. No, I haven't explored that.
But you can take that under advisement for
I sure
the next
can.
contract.
I sure can.
And Bryn's not requesting that we hold up
Yep.
this contract.
No, I think I misunderstood that we would somehow be sharing a license, but okay. Thank you.
Margie, your hand is up concerning the NetSuite contract.
Yeah, and I'm not objecting at all to renewing it. I'm just a little curious about whether the use of Excel as opposed to NetSuite for that piece that is apparently saving us a lot of money is, what kind of, is that extra work for staff? Is that an extra burden on staff time?
I'll speak to that. No, I think it's saving us an enormous amount of time.
Great.
Very good.
Excellent.
Yeah, the fixed asset manager and the NSPB, that was the budgeting module, they were not very user-friendly. And they were not intuitive, and they were expensive. So when we looked at our options, we said it's much easier for us to just go back to basically basic Excel. And it's, has been very, very simple to implement for everyone, and especially the budgeting module, which is our kind of our first run through with this year with using this new setup that John created. So yeah, it was a significant savings by dropping those 2 modules.
All good, thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other questions or comments about the NetSuite contract renewal? Hearing none, then there's a motion in the packet that reads, a motion to accept the Oracle America Inc. annual renewal estimate for the NetSuite software as described in estimate number 1777908, totaling $50,062.80. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, South Burlington.
Second Jericho.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the NetSuite contract. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries and the contract is authorized for renewal.
Thank you. And on that number, it is exactly $62.81 over my authorization to spend. And John did try this year and last year to get them to knock $63 off, and they simply would not do it. So just want to say we gave it the good old college try. $63.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Our for the benefit of the commissioners who are remote, our dinner came a little bit late, so I was trying to sneak in a bite. We're out now ready for item number 4 in our agenda, which is the MRF, the Materials Recovery Facility financials. I'm not sure who's going to take, so if you had any introductory comments or turn it right over to John?
Me, John, Josh, Kaylee, Jen, so it'll be a little bit of a team effort. So we've been kind of waiting to present this to you just because things keep changing as far as where the project costs are landing, both to the positive and to the negative. Kaylee Barber is here. She is our construction project manager, and she is literally the boots on the ground. She is the person who is actively on site. She's actually moved her office over to the compost facility office so she can be across the street from the building site and can be there whenever she is needed or whenever we want her to be there, which is pretty much every other day, if not every day. She can run down the street and be available. But she's also the primary contact for both REARC construction and for AES. So she's coordinating all the communications and is keeping track of the financials. She and John has access to that spreadsheet as well. And so John put together the memo that is in your packet. And the question revolved around basically, are we on track with the project costs? And so the great news is yes. So we are on track with the cost as I had brought them to you last year after everything started to increase. So we have not gone above to date. The 38 million that we had said would likely come in around. We are still tracking just below that, and we are constantly looking for savings. And I cannot say enough good things about REARC, our construction project partner. They are always on the lookout for ways to help us keep these costs under control and to knock costs off of the project. So I'm continue to be thrilled. I'm sure Keely would agree, and Josh as well, that they've been a wonderful partner to work with. Very communicative, and again, very, very mindful of our budget and that this is a municipal project, and that cost is important. John, if you wouldn't mind kind of running through maybe some minor details, great.
Sure. So there's a very great big spreadsheet that we've been updating since I started, and we presented a portion of that last July. There's a top section of the spreadsheet that tracks costs and when we think those costs are going to be incurred and where the source of the funds are. That's the excerpt that was missing from the memo when this thing first came out. I'm gonna see if we have page numbers. I don't see page numbers.
So it starts on page 45 of
45.
the PDF.
So each of these pages represents a span in time, but I think they all include the sections A, B, and C, and the very bottom line called financing balance. The top section is me taking the reports that Kaylee puts together that has the expense tracking, trying to lay it out by quarter. Some of this stuff is historic, some of it is forward-looking. On page 45, this is all historic information. As we come down, reading the sheet down, you get to section B, financing. Basically, the top is outflows, the bottom are inflows. And there's the $10 million on the Series 1 on the bond. There's a couple of grants that we've received. And as you look across to the right, we'll see that, you know, we're going through time. The important numbers to look at under B is CSWD capital reserves. So when there's a number on that line, that's cash that's coming out of basically our pocketbook, right? There's also a number down below, financing balance. That represents how much of the bond is remaining to be used. That's basically how this thing works. If we can jump to page 40.
Is there a way to put this up on the screen?
I suppose.
Amy, can you possibly? Yeah. You want to go to page 47 or 48? John?
47. Thank you, Amy.
Can't see the page.
You're on 38.
I'm on, okay, thank you. Okay,
So if you can probably type in,
yeah, I'll just do this. Oh, there they are, sorry.
Yeah.
48.
Okay, and so, yeah, I think
you go
just
back
come
up?
down a little bit. 47.
Page down.
There we go. So this is where we start coming into the forward-looking info. You see up at the top, actuals and forecast. The line with construction deposit, general conditions, it's kind of a catch-all for me. When I'm looking at Kaylee's detailed schedule, there's a lot of different categories of things, and quite frankly, I don't know what half of them are, right? But I'm tying back to her schedule, and we coordinate a little bit about the timing. There's a little uncertainty as exactly, you know, what's gonna come in when, but I think we've got a pretty good handle on the overall timeframe. We may be off a little bit in one quarter or the other, but I feel pretty good about that general timeframe when we see those costs finish. So the yellow stuff is what is forward-looking. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see down below, financing balance. We have that $12 million from the second tranche of the bonds. If you look to Q2, there's $1 that came out of rounding from somewhere. I've just left it alone. And then we start to spend down the bonds. So now if we go to page 48, as we go out into the future, you'll see we start to spend down the bonds, and there still isn't enough to cover those costs. So then we begin to spend CSWD capital, which is on the line CSWD capital reserves under section B. So if we add that line up, that's kind of the shortfall in financing. So we've got to take it out of our pocket.
And we financed $22 million.
That's right.
So the difference between the 22 and the total project cost is what is partially what we're seeing on that line, future expenses.
Yes.
in the future, right?
There's a number down below under financing cash out, right down at the bottom, it's highlighted in green. That is a number that I'm tying back to Kaylee's overall schedule where she's tracking the costs. There's a little bit of difference, right? If you just called that schedule up, her number looks a little different than mine, or some things are categorized slightly different on this table. But I'm reconciling back, and that's how I know I've got all the costs. So once we see that capital reserve number, It's what is it, 7 million? Almost, yeah, and we've got about 4 million in the reserves. So if we can go, Amy, if we can now go back way up to page 44. Here we are, a little further up, okay. So as of December, this is our typical report every month, talking about the cash, the warrants, and the reserves. If we look at the MRF Capital Fund, it's account number 32107. This is something I think Leslie was asking about last time. You see, we have 4.4 million in the fund, but we don't have cash to cover all of that. This is because I'm allocating cash in a priority according to the waterfall for those restricted funds and the operating reserves that we've talked about. I think historically we've been looking for 3 months of operating reserve. I just kind of carried that forward. I think we've talked at the finance committee, feels like a whole lot to me. But as we stand here in December, we have the cash to cover $7 or $8 million. About 4 of it is sitting right in that MRF Capital Fund, and the rest of it will come out of working capital. If you scroll down a tiny bit, so we've got 3,799,000 and then another 4,151,000 in working capital, or I'm calling it total operating cash reserves. We still have some time to add to the MRF Capital Fund. It's underfunded here because of what we've been experiencing at the MRF with the ACR being low. Some of the volumes continue to decline. So the MRF hasn't been kicking out cash like it used to cover all of the rest of the operations. So what's happened, I think it happened in October, November, it got a little better, and then December it went back the other way where the MRF needed some help. And that's simply a factor of what the ACR was and the volumes of our outbound materials.
So if I could just stop you there, just to try to clarify for the benefit perhaps of other commissioners who are real numbers oriented. Total project is estimated to be $38 million. We borrowed $22 million, leaving $15 million.
You got $1.5 million from the state, so.
We did
Right.
some, yes.
But as I recall, I think we still have
So the shortfall
Yeah.
was 7 million.
$7 million.
Mhm.
And we have already allocated or earmarked for the MRF Project Capital Fund, only 3.8 million.
3.8 million in hand.
7 minus 3.8 means we've got that difference to fund somewhere, and you're pointing out that we do have operating reserves
Yes,
that can meet that.
we do,
So,
as of today.
as of today.
Then the discussion of what was going on at the MRF and needing to be backfilled is a little bit relevant as we talk about how do we generate more cash to continue to fund the MRF Capital Project Fund, right? Because the whole point of that was to make up that shortfall. As we see the ACR starting to come back a little bit, and as we increase this tipping fee at the MRF, it's gonna help better offset the costs at the MRF, leaving more funds to go into the MRF Capital Fund. Thereby, in theory, if all of this works, right, we would have to dip into those operating reserves to a lesser degree. But the point I'd like to make is we have the cash, we just need to look at what bucket it's coming out of and perhaps accept less than 3 months of operating reserve for some period of time. My expectation is that that would be, although I don't know how long it would be, I would think that's a temporary condition while the MRF gets up and running.
So from my perspective, one is the confidence level that you can assure the board that we can pay for this project. And then, and you've outlined that it's possible, but then we get to, I think, to the board's concerns and questions. You'll be dipping into other reserves that we might have some concerns about, that might leave us a little bit, I don't know what the right word is, and I don't wanna cast this incorrectly, but that we might not have the reserves we would like to have for other needs within the operation if they're
Well, and keep in mind that
pointed towards the MRF.
the two reserves or the two funds that John's pointing to augment are kind of the everyday operating fund, which is, you know, if something were to happen and the drop-off centers needed 3 months worth of expenses paid, generally that's where it would come from. And in John's opinion, I agree, that seems, it seems like a lot, because we do have other levers to utilize if something were to happen, and we needed to increase fees, or we needed to lay people off, or if there was something catastrophic that we needed to really dip into that for 3 months. That's where the risk is, that if we were to have been utilized for the project, we wouldn't have that ability. It feels like that's a very, very low risk.
I agree.
And, similarly, a solid waste management fund, that is again, generally pays for the administration pieces. So again, it's gotta be something obviously external to CSWD happening in the general world, where zero revenue is coming in for 3 months.
So I'm asking these questions really on behalf of the board. I'm not trying to introduce too much discussion right now, but I just wanted to be clear and then turn it back over to you for
Right.
continued presentation before we open it up to the full board.
Right, but like that was, just as a reminder, that was the general philosophy behind having 3 months worth of ready access, just in the bank.
So again, please continue from my interruption.
That's basically it, other than, I've never worked at a place that has 3 months reserve, right? Where I've, in the past, in the for-profit world, we would get a revolving line of credit that we could dip into that basically represented, I don't know, a month at that, half a month. I've never worked with 3 months reserve. So I'm very comfortable, at least in my mind, particularly here. I mean, our cash cycle time is measured in days, not weeks, not months. And what I mean by that is if something happens and we need to make some kind of adjustment to generate additional revenue, we can do that very, very quickly over a short period of time. And this would be a catastrophic thing that we're reacting to, right? There's always trash, right? There's always fees. It doesn't stop. Even in the worst of times, there's still trash. And I haven't even begun talking about what might we do in those really dire straits to reduce expenses. There's a lot of levers to pull is the way I think of it as. 3 months reserve is fine. And I still see it as there's cash there and we just need to talk about what we might do. It sounds like a very reasonable discussion in my mind to think we might dip into those reserves to make up for some of this shortfall. And that's
Great, I appreciate your comments, very, very helpful. I'll turn it over then to the board. Maybe we can stop sharing for a moment so we can see the full slate of commissioners online and turn it over to commissioners with your questions.
I do have
I'll
a
say what.
question, and I think I know the answer because I talked to John a little bit ago, but Kaylee's here, so that's great. So if I read that schedule correctly, which, by the way, I liked the schedule in general. I was really happy to see it. But it looked like the equipment purchase ended in June of last year. And that was the last expenditure, and there was no future. Maybe now my vision is not the greatest, so I could have missed it. But it was around 15 million-ish or so. So my guess is that that's the cost of the BHS sorting equipment.
Processing equipment,
Yeah.
and I did.
It seems like there'd be things like HVAC and other things that would come in.
Right, that's all part,
Yeah.
so HVAC that's all part of the building construction.
Okay.
The BHS system, the sorting system payments, the first tranche of the bond went towards the first 2 required payments of that. So when we placed the order, we had to pay 25%.
Yeah.
When they started building and other such. So that 10 million went to the, it's about $16 or $17 million cost. So there is still a remaining balance for BHS. Their next payment doesn't kick in until they then are on site physically starting. So that'll be another probably 30%, and then we hold back 10% until everything is up and running to our satisfaction. So there is still payments left to BHS that remain,
It's
Wouldn't that be-
38%.
When,
38%.
did I miss that? When is that is that in that project? I'll look later, but I didn't, gosh, I
But that's
didn't
the question,
see it.
where in these
Where-
numbers does
yeah.
that expenditure show
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, likely it will, so they are slated to be on site, Kelly, I think around September, late August, September. So they would be expecting payment by the end of the first quarter of next fiscal year, very beginning of second quarter.
And is that reflected in this? that you
To some
scheduled?
degree, no. I think
Okay.
what's going on is when I looked at these descriptions,
Mhm.
I had trouble aligning them exactly with the details that Kaylee prepares. So the forward-looking numbers, the ones highlighted in yellow, that's kind of a catch-all of what we need to spend. There may be equipment in there might be something that would fall under mechanical, there might be something under. I could not competently
Not a-
identify that and break
Last
it
update that I
out.
did this last week, when I was looking at it, I did
saw that some
notice the
stuff changed.
equipment wasn't reflected in your spreadsheet, so it was also like
Okay. So
looking
that's
between
And
spreadsheets.
the last thing I promise, is the baler included in the BHS contract? I think we're buying
Yes.
one new baler, right?
Correct, it
Okay.
is.
All right.
So I think
Okay.
probably what we see is one of the equipment payments has those other types of equipment in there.
Okay.
So it's not strictly the BHS equipment.
Well, if you get a chance to update it,
Sure.
that'd be great, love to see that.
So again, for the benefit of other commissioners, the question is, where is this number?
Yeah.
And what I want to know is this number accounted for? I'm hearing the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Where in the schedule, that's something that can be.
Right.
Yeah, it's embedded in the
Found
yellow
it.
highlighted.
That's fine, thank you.
Some of the descriptions there seem not to really fit anything.
The yellow
Right.
highlighted is just building,
Okay,
not the processing equipment.
so the yellow highlighting does tie back in total to your number. I don't know what else. Is it all just, is all of that then sitting on the line correctly as construction deposit general conditions? I feel like there's some other descriptions that might fit.
I think we can
Yeah.
we can find where that equipment lands in one of your
Sure.
projections
And change some of
call it
these,
out.
and change some of
Yeah.
these descriptions,
In the
cause
projections,
some of them
yeah.
don't, some of them just don't, right, there's many of them don't have a number on them at all. right?
Yeah.
I'm good,
Excuse
thank
me,
you.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
I thought I just heard Kaylee say that equipment was not in those numbers. And then before we were told they are in those numbers.
So I'm not making any attempt to take the details that Kaylee puts together and represent the detailed breakout that she has onto this schedule, because these descriptions didn't seem to fit, and I'm looking at descriptions on there, and quite frankly, I don't know what each individual item is and where it belongs. So I'm capturing the numbers, and I know that I've got them all, because in total I tie back. So I'm showing outflows under the line construction deposit general conditions, the yellow highlighted stuff. It's the outflows that match Kaylee's detail, but I'm not showing the breakout. So to the extent that there's equipment in Kaylee's detail, I'm not breaking that out. I'm showing the total number.
No, I understand that. I just thought that Kaylee said something different and maybe I didn't understand correctly.
I think we'll find that big final payment that's buried within the projected costs in the future, and we'll pair out that final BHS payment. We'll reflect that in the future looking spreadsheet.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you for bringing it up. Bryn, your hand is up, and then we'll go back to Leslie for her follow-up next questions. But Bryn, you're.
Thanks. Paul, can you clarify this? Is this just an item for discussion? Are we being asked to make a decision here?
No, this is, we're in discussion and information, bringing the board up to speed on the project cost.
No
Okay,
action.
great, thank you.
Leslie, the floor is yours.
Thanks. So I'm looking at the, John's, closing remarks on the cover memo, in terms of where, there might be opportunities for additional inflow of cash, that could either go direct to financing or go into reserves. And there are two items there. One is a February ACR of $93 a ton, and the other was the increase, April, tipping fee increase scheduled. And I have two questions about those. One, has there been any effort to do some iterations or scenarios of cash flow through the rest of the calendar year for, I don't know whether a $93 a ton ACR will hold, but maybe take a moving average over the last, I don't know, 18 months and project that forward along with the increase in the April increase in the tipping fee to see how that would in fact affect inflow of cash. Right now, we have, a statement from management that this will help, this will be good, but we don't have any quantification or any scenario, any estimate. And I think would be really good to have a look at that. If that would be, if we could see that maybe next time around. To me, it would give a much fuller picture just to have that confidence documented. The other question I had is, what is the schedule of the loan repayment? When do those kick in?
Yeah, so the interest payments, we did an interest-only payment for the first 4 years of the drawdowns. So we've been paying interest only for the past couple of years. And it's been staggered because we took the bond proceeds in two tranches. So that was designed to be able to give us a couple of years of operations when the new MRF is up and running. And I believe the first interest in capital is in year 2 of operations of the MRF, and then the next is in year 3 of the operation. So by year 3 of full operation is when we'll feel the full impact of the interest and principal.
So the interest payments that we've been making come out of our general operating budget? Is that?
Yes.
Yes, it's part of the MRF operating budget.
Okay, so for the period shown here through the end of, basically through the end of the calendar year and into next calendar year, we're on interest only, and it's gonna be, well, no, we'll have made the second tranche, so those interest payments are gonna change,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
That's why I'm, this is a very long-lived undertaking, and trying to see it in these relatively short increments is very difficult when right here, we're just looking at the capital budgeting rather than the total cash flow. And
Right, this is the bill.
It really would be good to see, and there's a limit on how much you can project out, but at least get a sense once the interest on the second tranche starts kicking in, how's this whole thing, what's the cash flow, the total cash flow gonna look like? Because later on the agenda, we have another price increase proposal to be discussed. And it's just, you know, getting a little uncomfortable, shall we say, without having more data here that,
Yeah,
yeah, you getting me? You're nodding your head, so I think you understand.
I think so. So what we're currently looking at is just the cash projection, the cash flow for the project, right? So the interest payments are currently coming out of the existing MRF operating budget, and the interest plus principal will be coming out of the future MRF operating budget.
Got that.
So yeah, so you're not, that's why you're not seeing either in this current projection. This is strictly for the construction project. And so I think the second part of what you had asked for maybe last month was a projection about the future MRF operating cash flow.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And even, but based on John's memo today, you know, pointing to the current ACR and pointing to the increase in the tipping fee, seems to me it would be very useful to have at least a little cash flow exercise projected to the end of the calendar year to underline what the expected hope for addition to reserves or to project cost, you know, it's in and out, going to be very fast, right?
Right.
Would be based on those two new variables.
Yes, gotcha. Okay, we can do, it would be a rough estimate. We can certainly provide that as it relates to this project.
Sure.
So
Yes.
Yep, okay, so
Right.
we can have that for you, that again, we'll throw all the caveats on that you've mentioned. And we can have that projection for you as well. So regarding the future operational projection, we did provide a memo to the board last July. We kind of talked about the different scenarios and some assumptions. John and I looked at that memo a couple of days ago and realized basically everything except for maybe one bullet is the same. The goal that we have for the board prior to June is once the proposals, and this is one of the reasons I think Paula was mentioning the request for proposals that are out, once those bids come back, we will have more solid numbers to be able to put into a future cash flow projection for the operation of the MRF. So right now, it would just, it's a stab in the dark.
Right, thank you for reminding me about that, so I
Yes.
apologize. So I think maybe September-ish.
Before that, no,
Okay.
we'll be bringing that information May
Okay.
to the board. So because that's when we feel that we will have some solid information with real numbers to be able to plug into our kind of ongoing estimates. And that will be a much more robust conversation about what the future operational cash flow is going to look like for the new MRF.
Okay, but we can get at the next meeting, maybe this a
Yes.
response to my requests about the new ACR, new tipping fee,
Yes.
cash in, to have a look at how that would change.
Yep, and what we
this
can do
document.
is we can put a range on the ACR because, you know, we all know it
Sure.
is volatile.
Mhm.
So, but we'll throw kind of a min max on that based on, you know, what we've seen over the last year or so.
Well, we should have February data for that
Yes,
next
very
one, so
soon. Yep.
that'll hopefully show what we're hoping for.
I'm this far away from the February date. Great.
Yeah, yep, so we'll have another month of actual that we'll be able to roll into that estimate.
Well,
Great,
Steve,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to, wouldn't want to say, and I know you didn't want to talk about this, but I am so delighted that those RFPs have gone out. This
Yeah.
is something the board had many hours of discussion about, and it's really important for the future of the MRF. And so delighted. I'm really looking forward to the results.
Yeah, us too.
We're probably gonna have some hard decisions to make.
I think
but-
so, and it's been a
it's
great
great.
process, and for kind of the board's information and reminder, I think in the course of our history of owning this particular MRF, I think we've only gone out to bid once. We've had a string of long-term contracts with Casella, and it has been mutually beneficial. And we felt that, with this new facility, we should go back out to bid, just again, to introduce, to see if there's any other interest in perhaps introduce some competition to the process. And so we've done that, and we had some very robust questions asked during the question period, and so the responses are due back in about 2 weeks for that, and then there will be, it's obviously staff evaluation, and then we go back to the respondents and ask for any clarifying questions. This is our normal, how we normally do RFPs, and especially for large projects. And then there is likely some negotiation, but then we would bring that back to you for conversation, to Paul's point, to say, here's what this could look like. So that'll be over the next several months.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no, of course, you're welcome.
And again, a reminder that as John said, late Q2, which would be December of this year or early next year, this is supposed to be operational, so we'd be starting to generate some revenue out of this. So, we're on the cusp.
We are.
Yep.
Rick had a question.
Yes, Rick, go ahead.
Two quick questions about ACR. First one is, I got all excited when I saw that the ACR for February was up to $93. Then I realized that February's not over. How do we know what that is yet?
It was the January.
So it was in fact January?
Yes.
I think it says February.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, even that seems pretty quick in terms of getting that data out of the MRF, because historically that is always timely, so. But I'm still excited about that. So in order to roll that excitement forward, I would expect the quality of our recyclables to improve with the new MRF.
Yes.
So do we have any idea about how much, like, to make this concrete, recognizing that there are huge market variables that
Yeah.
you can't take into consideration? But if you took a batch of recyclables that warranted a $100 ACR, let's say, with the old MRF, do we have any idea what the ACR, how the ACR might improve under the new MRF?
It depends on the material, it really does. And so some materials are, all materials are downgraded for contamination, and the lower you can get the contamination rate to a purity, bale purity, then you have more outlets potentially to move your material to. So when it's a lesser quality, only a few outlets will accept that material, and just it's generally not as good of a price. So it may not necessarily be that we get a significant jump in price, but we may have a significant jump in outlets, and then we can kind of play the pricing against the different plants or mills. So the importance for us, being in a smaller market, is to have that constant moving of material. We never want to, be in a position where our material is not up to snuff and we have to sit on loads. We always want to move it out as quickly as we can for the highest price that we can. But having a higher quality, a higher purity of the bale, it gives us more leverage to be able to shop that price around. And then ideally, we would be locking into kind of a supply agreement for a little bit of a higher premium price to guarantee that material movement. We also will be sorting polypropylene as a standalone material, which we are not able to do right now. And so it'll take us a little bit longer to generate a load, but that will increase the purity of the HDPE, the HD, both natural and color, of the the PET, the polyethylene. So the more pure we can get those individual bales, the better. And so, it's, we don't necessarily want to play the spot market, but it gives us that ability to be able to say to different secondary, markets, we can prove that we've got this high quality because we'll be able to spit out a report from our bill that says so, and then be able to shop that around. So that's where we're really excited to be able to prove that high quality of the material. And so I'm anticipating we will be getting a better price.
Well, we don't know how much.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Anybody
Some
does.
materials can be 5%, some can be 10%. it's hard to say. And then it is very seasonally affected. So I think we should be hitting the container market well. So getting a higher quality on containers, again, HD, PE, polyethylene, polypropylene, just when the demand is going to start to spike for that. We'll be coming off of the high pricing for our cardboard, but that's okay. We'll be able to kick it back in.
Two other small points. I think the amount of recoverable material will be higher, especially given that we'll be having an eddy current to capture aluminum. And so our aluminum capture should be going up. And then there's a wind sifter being put in, which should allow us to clean our glass better and would potentially increase the amount that we can turn into PGA versus having to pay to go out of state to another glass processor. And so that should drive costs down. So that's not reflected in the ACR necessarily, but it's real world dollars that either we're paying fewer dollars or getting more money as marketable material.
Right,
So-
and the ACR does not reflect our costs for glass.
Right.
So as much as we can save on our expenses for glass, and the hope is to generate some revenue out of PGA, that is a huge benefit as well to that bottom line.
And where this question came from was thinking, well, are we going to get some little boost here that will help us pay down or reinforce our reserves if we need to? So, we should, I'm hoping that we're gonna see a bump there.
I would expect that we would. I can't quantify it until we start running the material through and we are tweaking the system to get it to operate as well as it can. Anything that is kind of the gravy, that's more than we're getting now, that will be put to the MRFs, the new MRFs capital reserve fund, so that it can.
That's what I was anticipating.
Correct, yeah, so that, and again, like everything that comes out of is generated by this MRF, every bit of revenue is likely gonna stay with this MRF, whether it's to pay for the operations in general, to pay down the debt service, and then to fund its own capital needs. So this is why and this is part of the conversation later, we're looking to other ways to augment the capital fund for our other operations.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment a little bit about the memo and that $93 in February. What I was trying to express there is that we see the trend coming up into that 93 range. I'm not trying to say that's where it'll finish in February, but we're seeing it come up. I haven't closed January yet, but when I do, I'm sure the January ACR is gonna be lower than 93, but on the tail end of that month, we'll start to see it come up. So December, it was 70 and change. I'm hopeful about that trend coming up. I don't know where January actually finishes, but I'm expecting it'll be a little bit higher than that 70. We start to see it come up. I'm hopeful that when we finish February, it'll be much higher than 93, but I don't know that yet.
We're gonna
I hope
moderate
it's
that
above 100.
expectation.
It's a trend, right? So the trend is heading that way.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion on the MRF financials at this point in time? It's again going to be something that we'll be taking a look at next month and continuing. Great conversation. Thank you all very much. Let's move on then to item number 5, the Materials Recovery Facility Water Line. And there is action requested at the end of this presentation to return it.
Josh?
We'll turn over to Josh.
Yeah, this is just the extension of the water line from the organics recycling facility down Redmond Road to the new MRF site. The memo lays it out. We received 12 bids, which is pretty amazing, and we did a walkthrough, and we requested some additional information from the low 6 bids from the initial 12, and then further refine that search to the final 3. And then the bids for the low 3 are presented in the memo. Greg Dixon with Krebs and Lansing is our civil engineer for the project and has worked with 2 of the 3. We did reference checks on all 3 and ultimately felt comfortable working with all 3. And so then essentially it just came down to the low bid, and that was Don Weston Excavating. Greg has worked with Don Weston on water line projects before, so he feels very comfortable working with them. The bidders were presented to the town of Williston so that they were in the loop as we went through this process, since they will be taking over the water line project at some point in the future, given that it's a public water line. And so they had no issues with the final three bidders, and so we all felt very comfortable recommending Don Weston for the board to approve Sarah to enter into contract for, so.
And you'll note that we are also recommending building in a 10% contingency, and that has been something that the board over the years has recommended, particularly on larger projects. So that is built into the request amount as well.
So I'll ask a question, and if this is approved, the money is part of this year's capital expense budget?
Correct.
So we do have the funds available to do this.
Correct. And the bids that we present to you in this memo are coming in significantly below the engineer's estimate. So this is great news.
About half.
Yeah, close to half.
Yeah.
Alan?
We're still with ductile iron?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Good question.
And just, is the water line gonna go on the opposite side of the road from the gas line?
Yes. Yep, it'll cross a couple hundred feet down from where it ends now. It'll take a 45 diagonal under Redmond Road, and then it'll continue on the new MRF side of the road all the way down to the end of the road, yeah. So nothing to do with the gas line. We don't wanna get
Yes.
involved
I know,
with
I was worried about that.
citing that at all,
Yes.
so.
Great,
Yep.
thanks.
We'll have an opportunity to ask other questions, but now why don't we have a resolution put before the board?
Be it resolved that the CSWD Board of Commissioners hereby authorizes the Executive Director to enter into a contract with Don Weston Excavating, Inc. of Williston, Vermont, for the purpose of constructing a water line extension on Redmond Road in an amount not to exceed $719,645.30.
So moved, Essex.
Second, South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we enter into contract with Don Weston Excavating for the construction of the water line. Is there any questions or discussion on behalf from any commissioners? Hearing none, then all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries and the contract is approved. Great,
Yeah.
thank you very much. We're now move on to item number 6, discussion item only, which is the drop-off center fees, and there's a memo and background in the board packet. I guess I'll turn it over to you, Sarah, to introduce this to us.
And
This to
then
us.
Josh and Brian Amatella is also here, so to have the conversation. So this is basically stemming from, as I mentioned earlier, a desire to look at each of our operations, our facilities, our all the different things, departments, operations, facilities, programs, that have generally been benefiting from the excess revenue generated by the MRF for capital needs. And with the MRF project eating into the capital fund, but then also the new MRF not likely to be contributing significantly to the ongoing capital reserves. I've tasked our operations folks with coming up with different ways to supplement the capital reserves for their individual programs. So Brian has been working on this, Dan has been working on this as well, and obviously with Josh as well, and John. So one of the things that we had brought to the Finance Committee when we reviewed the budget with them a couple weeks ago was a proposal that had been batted around to be able to start to generate some revenue specific to, in this instance, the drop-off centers, and to look at different ways to do that. So this memo is an attempt to kind of describe the situation, describe the process a little bit, and to present a couple of options that we talked about at the Finance Committee, to also reference that the Finance Committee did have some very good discussion, I think, and some concerns, which I would then turn to Paul and Lauren and Rick to discuss if they would like to. But essentially, we were kind of looking at what are the items that we currently don't charge a fee for at any of our facilities. And so we were looking at the blue bin recycling and food scraps. Currently, if you're a customer at our drop-off center, you bring in trash, they can bring in your recycling and your food scraps at no additional fee. If you don't bring in trash, we already have fees in place for both of those items. And what one of the proposals would be, one of the options to discuss would be to unbundle trash fees and to charge for each item individually. So charge for a bag of trash, charge for blue bin recycling up to a cubic yard, and charge separately for food scraps up to 30 gallons. So that was one option that was robustly discussed. Another option that was, I think, not as, we didn't get into it as deeply, but another option would be a general facility use fee or facility visit fee, and $1 per vehicle. Addison County charges $1 per, they call it administrative fee, $1 per vehicle for transactions that have a monetary value. So they don't charge it for things that are, like, for example, some of the EPR programs that they don't charge for, or for textiles, for example, they don't charge a fee. But they do charge for anything that carries some other fee. So if you had a mattress and they charge $20, you would also be charged the $1 administrative fee. So those were kind of two options to try to get at a more sustainable, ongoing way to be able to have the DOCs generate a dedicated stream of funding for capital reserve funds for the drop-off centers. And, you know, drop-off centers have ongoing capital needs, whether it's a new roof on the booth, or a new booth, or painting, or repairs to some of the structures, or repairing parking lot, or restriping, or refurbishing a drop-off center. The Milton Drop-Off Center has been in need of some significant upgrades for quite some time, for example, and we currently do not have the funds in the capital fund to get that underway, but it does need it. It's one example. So Josh or Brian, I don't know if you want to add to this before I turn over to the Finance Committee.
The only thing I'll add is that one of the big items that that we need to be funding for from the DOCs is equipment replacement, primarily compactors. I mean, that's fairly regular. I mean, our compactors get used all the time and have a pretty regular replacement cycle. I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, 7?
7 to 10, depending on you.
So it feels like we're regularly replacing at least one compactor, and so that's certainly a capital need that needs to be considered. So that's all I'll add for sure.
The only thing I would add is, I'll bring up Milton again, and just how the layout compared to other drop-off centers for safety and for ease of use. We've wanted to make that change for quite some time, and again, need to create the funds to be able to pay for those improvements.
And Milton in particular has seen growth as far as its usage.
Yes.
And so we want to acknowledge that and encourage more folks to want to use that facility. And so yes, it's another reason why it's kind of top of.
And we could, Williston is obviously will always, for the near foreseeable future will be our, super source, so to speak. But Milton, we definitely see as kind of a Williston North, hopefully, as far as, like Sarah said, the growth of that community and It would just be nice where it's is situated as far as easier for any of the northern people in the county.
There's also a looming potential expansion at Burlington,
Right.
when the Department of Public Works is able to move to Flynn Ave. We've had those discussions in the past, and there's a world in which we do expand there, and that will certainly cost capital dollars to do that, so.
And transactions have also been increasing
Right.
significantly in Burlington.
Yeah.
As well.
Is Essex Access Road in your capital plan?
Essex Access Road, I believe, is the town's responsibility.
It is.
Up the hill? Yeah. We have the responsibility from the gate in, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is there an issue?
And I've noticed in the numbers that it's, one of the most active drop-off
Certainly.
centers.
Yeah, certainly.
It is the most.
So
I'll
I'll
go
just jump
talk to
into
the town engineer.
Yes.
kind of just frame the discussion and turn it over to the finance committee. I think you've established the need to try to build the capital reserves for the drop-off centers. They can no longer rely on the MRF to contribute it. And we've got in front of us are kind of two different approaches to this. And I'm a drop-off center customer. And as I try to imagine this, option A, which is for blue bin recycling and compost, I would drive up to the booth and say, I've got my medium tote full of trash, and I've got another medium tote full of compost, of recyclables, and I've got a bucket of compost. And the booth attendant would say, it's $8 for the tote, it's $1 for the recycling, and it's $1 for your compost. That's kind of a scenario to imagine. The alternative would be, I drive up to the booth and I say, I've got my medium tote, and that's gonna cost, and I've got my trash in the medium tote, and I've got my recyclables in the compost. And they say, okay, it's going to be $8 for that medium tote of trash and recyclables and compost, and plus $1 for the, whatever we would call it.
Facility, right.
That's kind of the experience that I might have there.
And I guess I would say the third option that's sort of omitted from the memo is, because we are acknowledging that we need to do something, the third option is that we look at increasing bag fees. Yeah, so instead of laying out, the three different prices you're paying, it's $9 for your medium tote. And it's an increase in trash, and that's historically how we've always done it. But it remains, sort of quiet to what the cost for the other items. But that's the third way to do it. We just sort of, because we've always done it that way, we stayed silent on that as an option in the memo. But
Right, because we're looking at different ways.
Right.
And so that is kind of our traditional. Yeah.
And to tie the fee to the cost of managing the product or the material.
Right.
So I just wanted to help frame it for commissioners.
It's helpful.
And I'll step back, and I don't know if Paul, you wanted to say anything or other?
Well, we had a robust discussion at the budget meeting, and it was great. I mean, in the past, the board has had some concern about discouraging recycling and or compost, in that, well, if people find out they're gonna be charged for that, they'll just, at least the food waste, throw it in their trash, and they won't have to pay for it. And that might, my opinion, that might happen in some cases, but I think most of Chittenden County's residents are pretty conscientious about that kind of thing, so it might be limited, but that has been a concern that the board has expressed over time. And honestly, I don't have a strong feeling myself for this. The one thing, Sarah, if you don't mind, if you could talk a little bit more about the access fee, just in terms how that would be implemented if we were to go that way.
Yeah, and it could take any number of shapes, right? It could be on every single vehicle, no matter what you bring. Whether you're bringing something that you're paying for or not paying for. There could be some considerations that we would need to verify with A&R versus, around extended producer responsibility programs, because they you are not to be charged for disposal of these materials. So we would have to be very, very clear that the dollar, say, is for capital improvements or facility improvements, or it's a building fee or something that it is not related to your e-waste or to your paint or whatever it is. So that generates the most revenue because it's every single vehicle regardless of what you're bringing. Addison only charges it on the items that someone is paying for. So they would charge it on trash. Well, they don't take residential trash there, but they would charge the haulers for bringing in the trash. They would charge if you're bringing in bulky goods or a mattress or anything that they carries a fee on their fee schedule also gets that dollar tacked on. But they don't charge it on free things. So they don't charge it on HHW. They don't charge it on the mattress, on textiles, things like that. We could structure it however we feel makes the most sense for our customers and for district needs.
And you're not thinking of it as, you're thinking of it, every trip would be an access fee of the car, right? So you're not looking at like decals or something like that you pay one time?
No, this is per visit.
Okay, thank you.
So some of the conversation kind of internally with staff has been, well, that might cause folks to not come to our facilities as often, to save the dollar, and that's true. We have in the past encouraged folks to combine their trips, and if they can. And another comment has been, well, maybe that is not great for folks who have to come every week. I'm looking at folks who maybe have new babies who might want to be getting rid of the diapers on a weekly basis, or more frequently on a every couple of days basis. That's could be seen as a penalty for folks who need to go more frequently. So there's still this conversation to be had about how we might structure that to be fair, to be equitable. Conversation about just increasing the bag prices. It's then the full bearing of the increase is only on our trash customers, right? So everyone else who brings something in does not bear that same equal burden of supporting the capital needs. So there's a lot to have a conversation about.
Let me just see if you don't.
Yeah, you also turn
Ask
over.
Lauren or Rick if they've been on the finance committee, if they wanted to add to what I just said. Anything?
I think I wanna hold my comments and
Okay.
see what other folks have to say, and then I'll share my thoughts later.
Rick, did you have any further comments?
I can say them now, I can defer it.
Just as the finance committee, Paul had invited us to talk first, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah, something that I like about this, I hadn't really thought about this in so many words, is that CSWD seems to do a pretty good job of trying to have departments be self-sustaining, except in cases like household hazardous waste, where that's just not going to happen. It just isn't, not in our universe. And so philosophically, this feels like a good move in that direction. That said, my own personal feeling is that I could live with the recycling charge. I can live with any of it, obviously. But I would have real reservations about charging for food scraps, because the recycling program, this is something that came up in our meeting, the recycling program is very well established. It's been in place for decades. The composting requirement is relatively new. And as such, I think we should regard that as being relatively fragile. And that's also bringing in quite a bit less revenue than if we did the recycling fee. So I would be very leery about the recycling piece. Question about the transaction fee, would that apply to residential customers only?
No, any
So any
vehicle coming through.
So a dump truck full of something is $1.
Could be. Again, we can,
But that was the basis of your projection, right?
yes. This is purely on trips or transactions.
I personally feel more comfortable with the idea of a transaction fee than tinkering with some of the other things. But the thing that, definitely my biggest sticking point is the compost.
Alan?
Alan, and then we'll go to Bryn, and then Marty.
They consistently take our compost in a 5-gallon pail to the Essex drop-off center. And this week when I took it, there was a gentleman that showed up with like 8 or 9 5-gallon buckets, who I think is doing it commercially, picking up in his neighborhood or something. And I think that is, because he paid $1 and I paid $1. And I think that is completely, unfair. And the people that come, I think you're wrong, Rick. I think people will pay the $1 to drop their compost off. That's the only thing I take there. I think that we used to try to track everything with respect to its own use and cost. And I don't know what it cost us to move that green container of compost from there to Dan's place. But if, it's $60, $70, $80, I don't know, we should be making that $60, $70, or $80 at the drop-off center to pay for that. So I think, charging the $1 more if you bring it in, you should be paying, but just my opinion.
Be happy to be wrong. And I make a real habit of being wrong,
Yeah.
so
Bryn and then Margie.
Hi, I think I'm leaning towards option B, or the gate fee, personally. I just looking at the estimated revenues based off of the trips, it seems like it makes logical sense to go for a per trip application of a fee. I'm not keen on option 3, which is not in the memo, of raising the bag rates, at least not right away, if that was to be considered, since we've raised it twice within the last 5 years already. I just looking at the capital expenses, it's not insignificant. So a per trip fee to me seems like that accounts for all users across facilities. And again, just the volume of expense for capital costs that we know are on the predictable horizon, not even things that may come up, but that's where I'm leaning.
Thanks for the comment. Marty?
Yeah, this is just kind of a gut reaction, but I agree with Bryn. I like the idea of the facility fee. There's something, we are, if I understand it correctly, doing this because we need to maintain and improve the facilities, and it seems like that's the logic that is most easily explained. I would like to believe that most Chittenden County residents would compost their food scraps, but I'm just not that optimistic, based on, kind of seeing what happens in my neighborhood and seeing what the numbers are in terms of how much goes into the landfill. So I think I agree with Rick that that's a bit of a fragile place to seek to gain revenue. The facility fee also leaves open, there are costs, obviously, in, moving the food scraps and moving the recyclables. But if we, focus first on the transaction, it doesn't, to the extent that we need more or think that there is, people should be bearing the cost more directly based on what it is they're bringing to the drop-off center, that is something that could be done later.
Thanks, Margie. Ken, your hand is up, and then Leslie.
Just a couple things that come to mind. One, I'm slightly skeptical about all of our personal opinions about this. I think we're a self-selected group. We're not the typical consumer. I know at the finance committee, we haven't heard the word yet, but we talked about it in the meeting. We talked about surveying people. It seems to me we're gonna charge our customers one way or the other, and so what we really need to find out is what way do they want to hear it. so that they're happiest. And we won't know that unless we ask them some survey questions. Certainly be simple enough to say, hey, you know, do you want to charge us for do you want us to charge you for the $1 for the compost, or do you want us to add $1 to the bag? You're going to get it either way. What would feel better? You know, and another question, a simple question would be like, hey, if there's any charge on compost or recycling, how does it make you feel about compost and recycling? Maybe people will be honest about that. And then the final question is, you can't just talk about the cost of dealing with the product is disingenuous unless you also are acknowledging that we make money off of recycling. So I think that's the other half of the equation, and people might know that. I'm just throwing it out there.
Thanks, Ken. Leslie?
I think I'm leaning towards Bryn and Margie's point of view. What I like about the facilities fee is it's simple, it's easy to explain, it's consistent, and it's like everybody's equal in terms of the burden. We can't predict the mix of any particular household's stuff that they're bringing to a drop-off center, and even averaging, it may even vary by drop-off center. So to me, in terms of forecasting our financing, building reserves that need to be built, and communicating with customers as to why we're doing what we're doing, this is simple, clear, and very transparent, and that's what I like about it.
Thanks, Leslie. Betsy?
Hi, thank you. So I think I share the views of many who have already spoken. I'm very concerned about affordability. People are talking about having a hard time buying groceries, and if they feel now that they have to make a choice whether to drop off trash. I know we've had conversations about people who are throwing bags of trash in the woods. And, I'm not saying that would happen, but people are very concerned about affordability right now. I'm concerned, I agree with Ken. I think it would be helpful if we did maybe a survey just to do a little public outreach, a little bit of get some feedback from the community, because I think all of us could absorb this cost in our monthly expenses, but I think there's others who it might be harder. And then I do think if you were to call a vote on this tonight, I would go with the transaction facility fee. I do feel like the kind of every vehicle, commercial, residential, being charged $1, it's more equitable. And I think it's easier to defend because people get when they drive onto the lot that, the asphalt's going to have to be repaired, that the composters need to be replaced and maintained. So I definitely, of the three options for the transaction facility fee, but I hope that we can do a little bit more work to sort of get a better sense of the people who use our services, how they're feeling about it, because I know people are feeling stretched. Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy. Bryn?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that during my previous comment is just really appreciating calling out the equity considerations and how there might be some unintended consequences of any decision that's made. And so kind of accounting for that in the decision model is something I really want to call out and appreciate as part of the discussion. I think some additional considerations might be that human behavior is cost averse, and that's why the bag ban works really well, even for a dime or a nickel. That folks are, pretty consistently bringing their own reusable bags to stores rather than paying a dime for a paper bag or, buying a new reusable bag. And I think one thing with option A is that folks may just avoid, since they're cost averse, may just avoid those additional fees by putting it all in the trash, which is, while it's landfill banned, it's hard to enforce and probably something that, you know, works against our primary goals of diversion. So lots of things to think about. I really appreciate the opportunity to discuss and the work that the Finance Commission side of the commission has already put into that. So thank you so much for all that.
Great, thank you, Brent. I just want, for point of clarity here, just to remind the board that this proposal, this revenue, whatever might be adopted, is not part of the fiscal, the budget that we are presenting, that we're going to be acting. That's what I heard at the Finance Committee meeting.
It was not part of it at the Finance Committee meeting. We are hoping to add some revenue. However, it is not currently in the proposal that the Finance Committee saw.
Okay, very good. And so then an ultimate decision and action by the board would be soon?
Well, this, again, this is for discussion for the potential to add something to the budget for consideration, which we'll be bringing the budget to the board next month.
Okay.
So this was to help inform that if there was one way or the other that you wanted to go, or if there was, said absolutely not, we're not doing this year, we'll look at it for next year. We just wanted to get some input and feedback and discussion and options.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Lauren, opportunity for you to weigh in.
Yeah, I appreciated hearing everyone's comments. I probably over participated on this topic at the finance meeting, but I think this is a really important interaction point with most residents. A lot of the time, this is their only customer experience with CSWDs coming to the drop-off centers. So that is a really important experience for them to have. And I, during the finance meeting, and Ken said it really eloquently, like, I really feel strongly that we should do a survey. There are just too many pieces of the puzzle that are really sensitive and important. I heard kind of like the challenging messaging pieces being recycling and food scraps cost us money as a district. They also sometimes make us money as a district. We need to, the reason why we need to increase these costs is due to our increasing expenses, which is not easy to explain to somebody who hasn't been maybe following our activities or following the MRF situation. And then there's also, you know, this conversation around like potentially changing the structure, and all of those things kind of have implications to the volume that we see. So I think with this being such an important customer interaction and with there being so many question marks in that case, I think the only way I would feel comfortable moving forward would be with a survey of some sort, or a focus group, something that gives us a better idea of like how folks are going to react to the different scenarios that we move forward.
I think we've heard a wide range of opinions, a lot of good participation, but unless the commissioners have one final comment, I think we're ready to move on. And you've got a lot of feedback to take under consideration.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for the conversation.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So let's move on then to item number 7, which is proposed changes to the solid waste management ordinance.
And then over to Joey.
All right. Similar to what was presented at the last meeting, but I'll just run through a few things. Compliance staff have identified 3 sections of the solid waste management ordinance that we would like to amend. The changes close an identified loophole in section 3.10, an expansion of education requirements for commercial properties, and a technical change for hauler licensing. Happy to discuss them in detail, but just as an update, we created the webpage to receive public comment. We sent an email out to all of our licensed haulers and received no comments from anyone. So should the board approve the proposed changes today in accordance with 24 VSA 1972, staff will post the proposed ordinance changes at town offices within the municipality, send out a press release to at least one local paper. We will update our website to reflect the changes, and then the public has 44 days to petition a vote against the ordinance change. And if nothing happens, then on April 27th, pending approval, this will go into effect.
So again, this has been presented to the board at previous meetings. I don't know if there are questions from commissioners about revisiting the proposed changes. Bryn.
Thanks. I just thought it might be worth calling out that there is some language with the Department of Fire Safety and with the Department of Health that incorporates ensuring that there's both trash recycling and food waste collection at residential rental properties. And that's statewide. So for folks that are working with their municipalities or their town health officers, there is some language that is already there that allows for some level of enforcement. I know that CSWD is looking for something a little bit more within the bounds of our own authority, but for folks that didn't know that that existed there, I thought it was worth calling out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryn. We do have a resolution in our packet. Joey, you could read that out for us?
Sure. So motion to approve staff recommended changes to section 3.10 and 4.8 of the solid waste management ordinance.
So move South Burlington.
Second, Jericho.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the changes, recommended changes to sections 3.1 and 4.8 of the solid waste management ordinance. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries, and please proceed with the public presentation and the steps that you've outlined to final implementation. Next item on the agenda was an executive session if needed. My sense is we do not need an executive session unless you have something that. No. So we will dispense with an executive session. Item 8, other business. Is there any other business to bring before the board? And that would be Alan.
Could we get an update on glass? You know, what we're doing with it and how much it's costing us and all of that kind of.
There is something in the air because Rick has also asked for an update on glass. So yes, I said to Rick would be happy to do so. There is, we're still waiting some finalizations from the state. However, we're happy to just give a general reminder for the board of what happens to glass in Wismar. So yes, Josh, why don't you and I figure out when we think the state might be finalizing that? And if it's a little later than we hope, then we'll give an update. If it's soonish, then we'll incorporate those changes.
Thank you.
So yes.
Yeah, and the timing is good because UVM is finalizing their the project that they did with us previously, or you know, as a partner. Mandar, who's the professor at UVM in the engineering department, who was leading the project, sent over one of his chapters for his publication to the materials working group for their review just last month, and so that should be finalized fairly soon too. So that would be, it's all good timing for sure.
Thank you. Anything else under other business? I think then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Essex.
Second, South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Declare it unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for another.
Night.
Have a good night.
Aye.
Bye.
Title.